to call to order tonight the Plymouth Township Council Business Meeting, Monday, January 12th, 2026. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for being here. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we jump into the heart of our agenda this evening, we just have two quick announcements. The first announcement is that Council met in an executive session on January 5th, 2026 to discuss collective bargaining and potential litigation. Second announcement, Council will meet in an executive session at the conclusion of this meeting to also discuss collective bargaining and potential litigation. We have no presentation items tonight. Our first action item is a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 1st and December 8th. That'll be Ms. Leonard.
I move that Township Council approve the meeting minutes of the December 1st, 2025 workshop meeting and the December 8th, 2025 business meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard. We have a motion by Ms. Leonard. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Monero. Are there any comments or questions from council? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Leonard?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
In favor.
Mr. Monero?
In favor.
Mr. Winchester?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Okay. We have a second motion tonight to approve the departmental reports and schedule of bills for December 2025. Mr. Winchester?
I move that Township Council approve the departmental reports and schedule of bills for December 2025.
A motion by Mr. Winchester. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Winchester?
In favor.
Ms. Leonard?
In favor.
Mr. Monero?
In favor.
Mr. Nelson?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. We have next a motion to approve a time extension for the property at 2907 Jolly Road, St. George Coptic Church. I will make that motion. I would move that Township Council approve the time extension for LD 24-3, 2907 Jolly Road, St. George Coptic Church, for the attachment that I will read. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Leonard. Thank you. So I have a letter from Mr. Tom Ludgate. On behalf of St. George Coptic Orthodox Church, 2907 Jolly Road, providing grant of an extension of time in which the township has to consider and act on a subdivision and land development plan. That would move the new plan action deadline date to April 19th, 2026. Any comments or questions from council members? From the public? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Monero?
In favor.
Mr. Nelson?
In favor.
Ms. Leonard?
In favor.
Mr. Winchester?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Next, we have a motion to approve a contract with the Montgomery County Planning Commission for community planning services for 2026 through 2028 for the township. Mr. Monero.
Thank you, Ms. Vicio. I'd like to make a motion that Plymouth Township Council approve the contract with the Montgomery County Planning Commission for community planning services for 2026 through 2028 per the attachment.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Monero. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Leonard. Any questions or comments from council?
I'd just ask Mr. West if he wouldn't mind just kind of giving a quick overview of what this contract is and the services we're looking at.
Thank you. So as we discussed in much more detail last Monday, excuse me, we had a representative from Montgomery County Planning Commission in attendance. We gave a really in-depth and detailed explanation of what their goals of this program are. And really, to boil it down, it's a really good opportunity for the township to become more proactive and have a community planner, kind of an extension of the community staff. And so some examples of what this planner would do would be to attend all of our planning commission meetings, be available for zoning reviews, help us with some flexible assistance, looking at some land use trend type things, on our comp plan to see if any updates need to be made and those sorts of things. And so I just want to say thank you to council. We have discussed this through the 2026 budget process. And this is one of those things where council is going to be enabling a much more proactive view on how we look at land use and future developments. And this is just one of the many things that we're looking forward to doing in the new year.
Thank you, Mr. West. Any additional questions or comments from council members? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. Mr. Monero,
In favor?
Mr. Nelson,
In favor.
Mr. Winchester,
In favor.
Ms. Leonard,
In favor.
and the chair votes in favor. Next, we have a motion to adopt a new township logo. I will make that motion. I move that Township Council adopt the new township logo as presented and authorize staff to implement its use on necessary township materials. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard. Before we take comments and questions from council, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. West, who will provide some additional context, and then we will turn it over to the chair of the Communication Advisory Committee to talk in more detail.
Thank you. So those of you who were here last Monday, we made a presentation about a possible new township logo. There were some good questions from council and some residents, and we just wanted to take an opportunity to provide some more context to council and residents to really highlight what the work of the Communication Advisory Committee has been. And I just want to, thank the Communication Advisory Committee. I see a couple of you here. Thank you. And this has been, and Al's going to get into much more detail, but it was a labor of love, and this is a representation of that work. And I just wanted to say publicly thank you for your work on this. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the chair of the Communication Advisory Committee, Al Ronderos.
West?
Good evening. My name is Al Ronderos, and I'm the committee chair for the Township Communications Advisory Committee. I want to thank the council for the opportunity to address you regarding the proposed township logo. After last Monday's presentation at the workshop meeting, it was clear that council had questions that we were unfortunately not prepared to fully answer at that time. By pure coincidence, it turned out that the committee had its regular scheduled monthly meeting 2 days later on Wednesday of last week. That gave the committee an opportunity to discuss these questions that council had raised. It gave us an opportunity to sharpen our thinking. The memo which came out of that meeting, you should all have it, was prepared afterwards on behalf of the committee by Len Hess, the Township IT Director. He did a great job as usual. This memo is also available to the public and to anyone attending this meeting. It specifically answers the questions that were raised at the workshop. I believe it's on page 47 and 48 of today's meeting package. I intend to get into some of the details of this memo as part of my testimony tonight. But before doing that, I want to put something else squarely on the table. It seemed to me that there was a great deal of skepticism by members of the council, not just about the specific recommendation that we made, but also about the project itself. Well, I have a confession to make, and it might come as a surprise to you. I know for certain that it will come as a surprise to most of the members of the committee. I might be chairman of this committee, but when this idea of a township logo was first floated in one of our meetings, I was personally pretty skeptical about it. It seemed frivolous to me. But I've changed my mind, and I want to share why I changed my mind with you. I've been a resident of Plymouth Township since 1987. That's a long time, and things were a lot different back then. Do any of you remember when IKEA was located at the Plymouth Meeting Mall? Yeah? Do any of you remember back in those days, say in the mid-90s, when I would mention to somebody that I lived in Plymouth Township, the reaction was quite often, IKEA. I heard this reaction quite a few times. Maybe some of you had the same experience. The reason for this reaction was that IKEA was literally part of the township's identity, its image. Plymouth Township was the place where IKEA was located, and that's how a lot of people thought of it. More recently, what I tend to hear when I say I live in Plymouth, and I'm sure that all of you have heard similar comments, are things like, you guys have a great community center, or my son has swim meets at your pool, or that's where Villanova plays baseball, isn't it? These things are now part of the township's identity, its image, its brand, if you will. Now, I don't think that the council that approved the permits for IKEA ever considered that IKEA would come to define, at least in part, the township identity. That, I'm sure, was incidental. Most likely, they thought it was some weird Swedish furniture store that will go under in a year or two. Likewise, I'm sure that the council that approved the development of the community center or the baseball field, I don't think that they ever considered that these things would years later still be associated with the township's identity. But that's what happened, and again, it was probably incidental. It was thinking along these lines that made me, personally, realize that it's not just the facilities we have that matter, it's also how we think about these things. The image that we have of ourselves and that others have about us, that matters a lot. It matters as much as the facilities themselves, and maybe more, because we're more than just the facilities that we have. And that's what this project is about. It's about the township's identity, its image. That matters a lot, and it's why I changed my mind about this idea. As a committee, we have considered many of the things that make Plymouth Township a special and unique place. We have historical buildings, a Quaker meeting house. We have neighborhoods, parks and playgrounds, lime kilns, a working farm, a somewhat working mall. But it does have a Whole Foods attached, and Boscov's is great. I'm sure there's more that I haven't thought of. And we have a unique location at an important nexus in southeastern Pennsylvania. What I've come to realize is this township's identity, its image, how people think about it, that matters every bit as much as the specific facilities that we have. That's what we've tried to capture as best we could in this project. Just like the community center and IKEA had an impact that was still being felt many years later, this proposal also has the potential to have an impact many years from now. This project could help define how residents, neighbors, and visitors think about our township for years to come. That's why it matters. Now, before getting into the details of the memo, there's one additional point I want to make about this proposal. It's not in the memo because we didn't think about it until later, but it's important. It's not an all or nothing thing. If approved, we can implement the new logo in phases. We can start with the obvious freebie. We're in the process of developing a new website as part of the communication committee's work. We can deploy it there for almost no cost. We can also look for other low-cost places to deploy it. Then gauge reaction, see if people like it. We can do canvassing and/or a survey, similar to what we've already done in this committee. We're old hands at canvassing and surveying at this point. And if we get a good reaction, it can be phased in organically as things get replaced. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Again, this point should have been in the memo, but we just didn't think about it then. But we talked about it since. Now, with all that said, let's discuss why the committee feels that this particular logo is a good representation of what is special about Plymouth Township and why we urge council to consider adopting it. Let's look at the memo, and if you would, could you bring it up on the screen? All right, so I'm just going to read through the memo a little bit, do some highlights. Why don't you just go to the logo and please expand it so it can be more visible. Okay. So this logo was developed as part of an iterative 8-month collaboration between ourselves and a company called Revise that helped us develop it. We gave them some ideas. They came back with their ideas. We said yes or no. I know my idea, which I had early on, was rejected. I thought that it would be nice to make it look kind of like the community center looks with the cathedral arch and so on. But we realized pretty early on that, you know, the township is just much more than the community center. And so this is what we came up with. We've talked about it in the committee over an eight-month period. We've gotten input from members of the staff. There's 2 members that are on the committee, Matt and Len, who's here. And there's some other people that were asked to give their feedback about various logos that we developed within the staff. And the consensus was reached that this is a pretty good logo. It's really the best that we could do, given the time and money constraints, I believe, that we had. So let's talk about some of the symbolism of this logo. The central diamond, the blue thing, it sort of reflects the geography of the township in a very abstract way. It also tends to resemble a shield, and a shield has many positive connotations. If you've ever looked at security services for your home, a lot of them will use a shield as something that is a guard, a protection, and that, I believe, conveys some positive connotations. Then we also have the interlocking rings, and if you can really zoom in tight, you can really see that the rings actually interlock. They're not just laid on top of each other, and that has a lot of different meanings. One of the nice things about an abstract design is that, in a way, you can sort of see what you want to see in it. But we did put down some of our ideas that we had. There's the infinity symbol in blue, which conveys infinity. Well, I guess that's kind of simple. And then the upper loop is in yellow, which kind of conveys sunlight. And also is a little bit of a reference to the township seal, which has a yellow boundary around it. And then the lower one is green, which conveys the land and the bushes and trees that are part of the environment of the township. And these things, they blend in very closely together. Can you zoom in really tight on the very center of this thing? So you can see how these colors, the yellow and the green, they kind of phase in, and so they sort of blend. And I believe that another way to think of these symbolism of this is that we have a lot of different communities in this township, and they interlock and they blend, and they work together. And that's what we've tried to capture here. Now, I've talked a little bit about the color palette. Then, of course, we have the typography of the township itself, which grounds it geographically. It's in Pennsylvania, Plymouth Township, and it's a bold, modern font. It's not, with the fancy serifs or anything like that. So, whether you like it or not, and maybe people won't, I believe we can implement it for, a very low initial cost and then gauge what the reaction is. But I think it certainly reflects the best of what we can do, and it does reflect a lot of thought and effort. So where would we use it? Physical assets, maybe the uniforms that employees wear, digital presence, certainly, we can put it on the website immediately, and maybe later on in places like Facebook page, Instagram, wherever else the township has a presence, marketing materials, newsletters, the signage on the buildings could eventually reflect this logo as well. Now, a clarification on the township seal, that would still exist. Anything official would be branded with this seal, not the logo, but I believe that they can coexist. And so I believe that it conveys unity, that it's stable, it conveys stability, and it also conveys that being progressive. So hopefully, in any case, that's what we tried to do. So that's basically what I came here to say. If anybody has any questions, there's a couple of more committee members here, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ronderos. Thank you for your thoughtful presentation and overview, and thank you to the Communication Advisory Committee for their work on this as well. Are there questions or comments from council members?
I just want to say thank you for all the time that you took with this logo. I know it wasn't easy, and that's all. Thanks.
I just wanted to also too, for those that don't know Al, by the way, Al's one of my favorite people. He's just a great guy, civic-minded, just volunteers his time all the time. Lynn roped me into the original manifestation of the Communications Advisory Committee that started, I guess, in 2024. And for those that aren't aware, we formed this committee of council members, residents, various stakeholders, and really conducted a pretty thorough survey of where we felt the township could do a better job of communicating, getting information out, where there were definitely some deficiencies. And I think the biggest thing that will come out of that committee will be the new township website and the access to information and the organization of information, trying to find agendas and documents and meetings and everything. I think it's going to be really good, and I think that committee is doing a lot of work, more than just the logo. And I actually agree with everything that Al said about why it's nice to have a logo. The idea that it creates this identity and helps to, sort of say, what are we as a township? I think having a logo is a great way to attract business, kind of create a connection. In addition to this, it's just, it's one of those things. Slogans, logos, they make you feel a little bit of a place of identity. I just want to say, unfortunately, I'm not really. I guess I'm not really in love with this particular logo, and I don't necessarily want to approve anything that I don't look at and say, man, this makes me feel great. So I'm probably not going to be in support of this particular design, but I think I want to make sure the committee knows how valuable the work is, and will continue to push forward and, maybe come back and revisit this or continue the discussion while also letting the committee move forward with the rest of its business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monero. Other council member comments?
Yeah, I think I'd just add that I also appreciate the committee's work on this, but I'm with Mr. Monero in that I think I would only be able to vote for a logo that I'm proud of, that I really like, and unfortunately this one falls short for me. But this is, I understand, a very subjective process, and that's why I'll be voting against it.
Comments? I think my final comment would be I appreciate not only this effort, but I do appreciate this logo. I think it is a nice pairing of our more formal seal and something that is a more contemporary, modern, crisp look. And I also really appreciate the committee's suggestion of somewhat of a soft launch, where we could put it in a few places and basically have sort of a pilot run. If we put it on our website, there's no cost to do that. If we put it on our newsletters, there's no cost to do that. The ability to sort of experience it and see if we like it, see what feedback we get from residents, to me is sort of a low-cost way to kick the tires on this before we make a decision that this is the right logo, or maybe we need to iterate or change it somehow. So that would be my final feedback. But that said, if there is there, I guess the first question might be, is there any other motion on the table at this point, other than the one that I shared to kick this off?
Can I ask a question? Can I
Please.
say something? I'm just wondering what the people who are here for other reasons, if they have any comments about this.
Any public comment? Please, if you have comment, please come to the podium, and if you would just share your name. You don't have to give us your address, but if you just let us know whether or not you're a resident of Plymouth Township.
Paulette Jones, Plymouth Township. Probably I'm just a very traditional person, and everything that he described was a good description, but I didn't feel that when I looked at it. And we'll always have the seal, right? Right, okay. And I think a logo is probably a good idea, but this one didn't speak to me. And he described a very beautiful thing, but I didn't feel that when I looked at it. That's all I have to offer at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Appreciate your feedback. Other public comments? Please.
Yes, my name's Frank Johnson. What I get out of that logo is like a vertical 8 and a horizontal 8. I just don't understand why the township really needs a logo when you have the seal that speaks loud and clear. You got a ship that Plymouth Township was created in late 1600s. The olive leaves are for, unity. I just don't get why we need a modern logo.
Mr. Johnson, could you please just let us know if you're a Plymouth Township resident?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much.
47 years.
Excellent, thank you. Other public comments about the logo?
Didn't realize we were talking about logos today. Ben Gibbons, Plymouth resident. Totally support the need for a logo. Like, you need to have a modern brand, and there's some other townships around here who have done a great job with that. It's a great opportunity to involve the community and have a logo designing contest, maybe broaden the range, get some feedback to it. The lights contest is a great community builder. Maybe it's a good opportunity. We have a lot of talent out there, and it would be free to solicit residents instead of paying consultants to continue to redesign that. So good luck with it. And, there is a need for it, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. Other public comment? Yes?
Richard Schickling from Boulder Road, Plymouth Meeting. It doesn't say a lot to me. The interlocking rings remind me of all the road scramble that we have down the street from here. And the shape in the center that's the square, that could actually be something representative of the actual shape of the township rather than a square. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Schickling. Other public comment? Okay. Hearing none, I will ask if there's any other motion that we should entertain, or if we just want to take a roll call vote on the initial motion. Any other motion? Okay.
Is there an option to table it for now, the conversation? Right, I make a motion to table this conversation about the logo.
Ms. Leonard has motioned to table this. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Winchester, second. Okay. We will take a motion to table the conversation to table the logo. Roll call vote. Mr. Monero?
In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Leonard?
In favor.
Mr. Winchester?
In favor.
Mr. Nelson?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. We will table the logo. Thank you. Okay, we have one other motion today. This is a motion to appoint a citizen, Patty Smith, to one of our citizen boards, the Civil Service Commission.
I move that Township Council appoint Patty Smith to the Plymouth Township Civil Service Commission for a 6-year term expiring on December 31st, 2031.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any questions or comments from council members? The only comment I would like to make about, we made a number of appointments to citizen boards last week. We're making another one today. We have some other citizen board openings coming up. And I just want to say how much we appreciate people stepping up to serve on citizen boards. A lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about a lot of things happening in the township, and that's great. It's wonderful when everybody has a voice, but it's particularly meaningful, I think, when residents step up to be a part of things happening in the township, to help make decisions, to help guide us forward. So I just want to say how much we really appreciate our citizens stepping up into these roles. Any additional comments? Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote on this appointment. Ms. Leonard?
In favor.
Mr. Monero?
In favor?
Mr. Nelson?
In favor.
Mr. Winchester?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Thank you. We also have tonight a number of informational items. First, I would like to ask Chief Merciades to share some updates from the police department with us.
Thank you. As we start the new year, I have some notable matters from 2025. Calls for service increased by over 5,000 calls, primarily related to traffic safety initiatives and our commercial business growth. We appointed a social service co-responder in 2025 on a part-term basis. She actually handled 631 follow-ups in that time period, a part-time basis. It was a big help, used to assist with our growing homeless population. It was used internally for any officers in need, and we actually appointed her as a full-time person for 2026, so we're hoping to see more of the same. We've also invested, starting in March, our body camera system. We've enhanced that to include translation and push-to-talk interface. So with the transient community that we deal with in a lot of different languages, as of now, this real-time translation will translate for over 50 languages, and they soon hope to be over 100, which we're already invested in, that will be included in the package. And basically, it provides immediate contextual information to officers in fast-paced situations, reducing the time spent searching for data and improving safety and decision-making. And finally, this March marks the police department's 75th anniversary. So there'll be some special things we're doing, one of which will be at the conclusion of Police Week in May, we'll be having an open house to show the community all the things that they have in their police department, the advancements, and the history therein. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from council members? Thank you, Chief. I just want to say we always appreciate your accomplishments over the course of a month, your activity. So much good stuff happening in the way of community policing, and really impressive the trend forward with a social worker. I mean, that is just really forward thinking. Clearly a need that's been filled, and we appreciate not only that you've brought a social worker to us, but actually increased the hours for that person going forward in 2026. Thank you. Okay, next we have an announcement of our citizen board vacancies by Ms. Leonard.
Sorry, microphone wasn't on. Residents wishing to serve on these citizens boards are asked to submit their resume or a letter expressing their interest to the township manager at 700 Belvoir Road, Plymouth Meeting, PA, or via email at mwest@plymouthtownship.org. The following citizen board positions are currently open. Property Maintenance Code Appeal Boards has 3 positions open. Human Relations Commission has 3 positions open. Historical Architectural Review Board has 2 positions open. Civil Service Commission has 1 position open. Zoning Hearing Board has 1 position open. Building Codes Appeals Board, 1 position open. Environmental Advisory Board, 2 positions open.
Ms. Leonard, if any of those openings sound interesting to you and you'd like to know more about them, feel free. You can reach out to Mr. West, our township manager. You can reach out to your council member. We would be happy to provide more information about some of these openings, what the commitment would entail, and to help you find a place on a citizen board if that's something you're looking for. Okay, we have the announcement of our upcoming zoning hearings by Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The Zoning Hearing Board of Plymouth Township will hold a public hearing on next Monday, January 19th, 2026, commencing at 7 p.m. here in the Plymouth Township Building. For those at home, that's 700 Belvoir Road, Plymouth Meeting, PA 19462. On the following applications, there's an application from KH Plymouth Meeting LLC for special exception from Plymouth Township Zoning Ordinance Number 342, as amended Article 32, Section 3200.f. The special exception requested is as follows. Applicant proposes to convert the hotel use to a multiple dwelling consisting of 173 apartments, proposed use. The proposed use will be comprised of 40 2-bedroom units and 173 1-bedroom or studio units. The property is located at 640 Fountain Drive, Plymouth Meeting, PA 19462 in Planned Office Park Zoning District. There's an application from Kevin Collins for a variance from Plymouth Township Zoning Ordinance Number 342 as amended Article 19, Section 1909.e. The variance requested is as follows. They are looking to allow a fence over 2 feet in what is deemed a front yard setback. property is located at 464 Fairfield Road in a C residential zoning district. Any citizen of Plymouth Township or interested party may attend the public hearing and have an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Okay, we're going to
Ms.
count on...
Fisher, can I just, I'm sorry, I just
Oh,
wanted
please.
one point of clarification. In that first item in the zoning here, it says use to a multiple dwelling consisting of 173 apartments, but then it says comprised of 42 bedroom and 173 one bedroom or studio. Can you clarify?
I believe Mr. West is actually going to clarify that for us. We caught that in this. It is not an error that the township made. It is something in the application we need to rectify, so he will take care of that and update us. Thank you, Mr. Renero. Okay, Mr. Winchester, please let us know about all the amazing Park and Rec upcoming events and programs. Oh, you were down for, well, Mr. Renero, did you have our Park and Rec upcoming events? I'd be more than happy to read. Thank you.
I'm a new member of council. I'm trying to get used to my iPad here. I'm an Android guy. I'll just read Ms. Leonard's because she's obviously prepared.
I know.
It's probably there. I probably just missed it.
Too
All
much
right.
fame,
So just some spotlights from the Plymouth Township Parks and Rec Department. Coming up, we have summer camp resident registration begins February 17th. Winter program sponsorships are available for January. We have our pool renovation updates going on at the community center. The social media for the Greater Plymouth Community Center has been posting a lot of updates on the pool renovation, and there's an email that goes out the first week of the month. At the GPCC, we currently have 10% off annual passes. That sale will begin in March 10th to the 16th. We have functional strength training classes beginning February 18th. The egg scramble with the bunny, the Bainbridge kids might want to go to that, Saturday, March 21st. Family bingo, Fridays, January 23rd and March 6th. Senior bingo, Mondays, January 26th, February 23rd, and March 30th. Premium circuit training classes begin on February 13th. We have our annual Black Heritage Day celebration at the GPCC on Saturday, February 28th. New dodgeball parties will be starting in January. And in the parks, we have the Celestial Stroll beginning, that is Monday the 9th of February at Harriet Wetherill Park. Memorial trees and brick sales are ongoing, and the veterans banners at the Greater Plymouth Community Center Park are also on sale, and the deadline for those are April 1st. All details are available in the brochure, on the GPCC app, the website, and social media, or you can always call the GPCC at 610-277-4310.
Thank you, Mr. Renero. Mr. Winchester is going to read our snow announcement, which we read every month in the winter, and what he doesn't know yet, because this is his first council meeting, is if it snows, we all consider it his fault.
Right. That works. All right. Residents are asked to remember the following to get through the winter season safely. Use off-street parking when snow is predicted. When you park your car in a driveway, there's less snow to shovel. On-street parking where no off-street parking is available is only permitted on one side of the street. In an odd year, parking is permitted on the odd number side of the street. Residents are reminded that it is unlawful to park or abandon a car on any street any time within 12 hours after snowfall of 3 inches or more, where off-street parking exists. Any motor vehicle parked, stalled, incapable of moving under its own power or left unattended upon any public street or highway in the township at any time within 12 hours after snowfall of 3 inches or more has occurred may be removed or towed to another location by the police department. Don't park near storm drains so crews can clear snow and ice to avoid flooding from the melting runoff. Vehicles parked otherwise are subject to removal at the owner's expense. Think safety. Never approach moving snow removal equipment. Just because you can see the driver doesn't mean he can see you. We try to keep our crews fresh and rested, but extended weather emergencies can mean long hours for township employees. Please keep children and pets off the streets as much as possible. When shoveling your driveway, pile snow to the right. This will prevent the plow from covering your driveway opening again. Property owners are required to clear their sidewalks at least 30 inches wide within 36 hours after the snow stops. Don't shovel or plow snow into the street. The plows will just move it back into your driveway or sidewalk. If there's a fire hydrant by your home, consider adopting it. You know where it is. If it's obscured by snow, fire companies responding to emergencies may not find it. Clearing the snow from the hydrant helps protect you and your neighbors. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Winchester. So that concludes the formal portion of our agenda for today. We're going to move into public comment at this point. We understand that there are a number of people here, very likely with comments, questions, and concerns about the Sober House on Brighton Road. And we're glad you're here. We're glad that you're engaging with council and bringing these comments and questions to us. We understand that that is likely to be probably one of the lengthiest conversations we have in public comment tonight. So we did want to give anyone who had a different issue on their mind the chance to voice that first, and then perhaps if they didn't want to stay for the lengthier conversation, to get there, to be heard, and then to step out. So the first question is, does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss with council, comments and questions, that is not related to the Sober House on Brighton Road? If so, please come forward. Again, if you could share your name, just let us know if you're a township resident. And one of the things we ask through all public comment today in every meeting is we want you to feel like you have the chance to be thorough and say what you want to say, but we also ask if you'd be as concise as you can so that everyone who wants to be heard has a chance to be heard. Thank you.
Paulette Jones, Plymouth Township resident since 1989, and it's more of a question that came up during the snow explanation. So if a plow hits your mailbox, and I know at one point the township would give you something toward getting it fixed. What is the township's position now if a plow knocks over your mailbox?
Mr. West?
Of course, thank you. Good question. If unfortunately, the mailbox versus snowplow, I think mailbox typically loses in that battle. When that happens, the township will reimburse residents up to $100 per occurrence. So when that happens, if you could just send an email or call our Public Works Director, Chris Loschiavo, and he will process that claim for you.
I hope it never happens again. Thank you.
And for those who aren't aware, Chris Loschiavo, again, our Public Works Director, you could find him on our website. You'll find a way to get to him via phone call or an email. And if all else fails, reach out to your council member and ask how to get to hold of Chris. Any other, please?
One question. The hot ticket item that's coming up about the hotel usage to apartments, has anybody given thought to contacting other major hotel companies to occupy the space rather than have it be converted and just put a new sign up? Holiday Inn was looking to move into this neighborhood for a bunch of years. I don't know that they ever found a location. This goes back for at least 10 years. They kept looking and looking and looking for Holiday Inn. So here's a hotel already functioning that could still stay as a hotel, and it would take the ripples out of all of the discussion that's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Schickling. Well, let me say one thing. During public comment, we don't feel obligated as a council to answer every question that you ask us, because in some instances we don't know the answer. And in this instance, I don't know if that property owner has done that. And that is something we can look into and share feedback with you. Going forward, I want to just say the same thing. for our next conversation or any other conversations, as a council, we will listen attentively to everything that you share, and we're taking notes. We might not always have an immediate answer or an immediate response. Sometimes we delay our response, synthesize what we've heard, and then always, if there's an opportunity to do so or a need to do so, to get back to you. Are there any other folks that want to speak, have public comment on a topic that is not related to the Sober House on Brighton Road? Okay. So we will move into the topic of the Sober House on Brighton Road. And before we hop into that, I just have a couple of other comments that I want to make. I know a number of residents have reached out to a number of us on this topic. In particular, a number of residents have reached out to Ms. Leonard and Mr. Monero, which is great. You should reach out to them. Ms. Leonard is the Ward 2 representative. Mr. Monero represents the township at large, and we recognize that they're both your neighbors. And on that count, we have some information to share tonight, and both Mr. Monero and Ms. Leonard have asked if they can respond and provide some information to you, specifically to respond to the direct questions you've asked them. So we will do that to kick off this evening. But as we do, I just want to be really clear that just because Mr. Monero and Ms. Leonard are presenting this information, it doesn't mean the rest of the council is disengaged, right? And no matter what comes in front of the council and where you live or what ward you represent, trust that we all care, we're all equally engaged in this topic, even though some of us may be taking a lead in terms of sharing information. So with that said, we'll start with Ms. Leonard sharing some information. She'll turn it over to Mr. Monero. We'll have one other person we want to share some information, that will provide some information tonight, and then we will open it up for your comment. Hopefully, as you listen to some of the information being presented, it does respond to some of the questions you've asked. Ms. Leonard.
Good evening, everyone. I think most of you know I live on Weymouth Road, so I don't live far from this proposed facility. And I just want to establish that I 100% understand that hearing that a sober living facility coming into your neighborhood is going to bring up questions, concerns about safety, overall quality of life, and all of that is 100% understandable. And I think that I speak for the rest of council as well when I say that we are 100% committed to listening to your questions and your feedback with care and respect. I am going to read most of what I'm about to say because I want to make sure it's all legally accurate. So these are all done as if they were FAQs, so frequently asked questions. So the first one is, why is a recovery or sober living home allowed in a residential neighborhood? Under federal law, people in recovery from substance abuse disorders are considered with persons with disabilities. The Fair Housing Act protects individuals with disabilities from discrimination in housing. That means recovery residences are allowed in neighborhoods where other group living arrangements are allowed, and municipalities cannot regulate them differently simply because the residents are in recovery. The Plymouth Township zoning code permits sober living homes in all areas within the township zoned residential, provided that they can meet the parking requirements. What parking requirements are then needed for communal living facilities and sober homes? Per Plymouth Township zoning code, the following requirements apply to communal living facilities and sober homes. 1 space for each non-staff working at the facility at the same time. 2 spaces for use by visitors and/or state or local inspectors. 1 space for every resident up to 5 residents, and 1 space for every 2 residents over the initial 5, unless satisfactory proof is submitted to the township that such individuals are incapable or not permitted to operate a motor vehicle during the period of residency at the facility. Does the township approve or license sober living homes? No. The township role is to make sure the property follows the same zoning, fire, building, and safety codes that apply to all residences. Licensing, when required, happens at the state level. Are sober living homes required to be certified by the National Alliance for Recovery Residents, Pennsylvania Alliance for Recovery Residents, or anything else of that nature? Certification programs do exist, but in most cases they are voluntary. Local governments generally cannot require certification unless specifically authorized by state law. However, many operators choose to follow recognized standards and good neighbor practices. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Monero to go over the rest.
Thank you, Ms. Leonard, and I'll just echo also what Kristen said, because I have had several conversations via phone calls, texts, Facebook, New Year's Eve texts, and we live there. So, and actually it's good, because honestly, a lot of the questions that have been asked to me are not just questions I would have, but they're questions I did have. So it kind of gave me an opportunity also to look back and hopefully help some answers. And again, as Ms. Leonard said, the questions that we're trying to present here are things that we've been asked, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of follow-ups to what we said. So, feel free. We certainly welcome those. One of the questions that we asked was obviously a question about safety. I think safety is sort of paramount, probably one of the top two. And there were questions about what the township would do to ensure safety. And it really kind of falls to our standard safety practices. We still have to require that all building and fire codes are met. We have to make sure that property maintenance standards are enforced. Any nuisance and noise complaints need to be addressed, and those are the rules that apply to all residents. So anybody that's living in any single-family home or any residential area will be held to those same standards. Another good question was about inspections, and what is the sort of the regular inspection process, and do these facilities get inspected? Any property in the township that's used as rental housing is subject to the township's rental inspection program, regardless of the type of occupants. Inspections are done annually in accordance with the township's adopted codes and our ordinances, always to ensure compliance, paramount with health and safety standards. There's obviously questions. I honestly haven't had as many of these, but it was brought up, and it was also addressed by Ms. Lender a little bit. Questions about increased traffic or parking issues. And again, residents must follow the same traffic and parking laws that we have in everywhere else in the township. If problems arise, the township is able to address them through normal enforcement channels. And as was mentioned, there are the additional parking requirements for these communal living facilities. People always want to know who to contact if they see something, if something doesn't look right, if anybody appears to be going beyond what the what the permitted activities are. Residents obviously can always contact the township with any concern related to property maintenance, noise, safety code compliance, parking. I know personally from my first term on council, I probably got more phone calls and emails in 8 years about property maintenance issues and code enforcement issues than anything. So we do commonly receive those phone calls in the township, and any of us certainly are always willing to field those questions. Questions about clinical services, like what's provided, or questions about licensing are things that we probably have to direct towards like the state, which has most of the regulatory agencies with that. So that's kind of a pretty broad summary of at least maybe not every individual question that we've received, but kind of the topics, the general idea. So we wanted to at least start by making sure that everybody heard those responses, not just the people we talked to individually. And certainly we'll expect some more follow-up from you probably on some of those specific issues.
Great, thank you, Mr. Monero. There's one other person that we wanted to provide an opportunity for to speak tonight. I know a lot of residents have asked, like, what's the plan? Like, specifically, what is the proposed plan? So we've asked Ms. Amy Farrell, who is the attorney for the applicant, to join us tonight and to provide at a high level the proposed plan. One of the things I will comment on before Ms. Farrell gets started is this is not to be fair, this is not an opportunity for all of us to pepper her with questions. This is a chance for her to share a plan, and then if you all have questions, you're directing those questions to council when she's done. Thank you. Ms. Farrell?
Good evening, and thank you, everyone. Amy Farrell with Kaplan Stewart. Can you hear me okay? And again, thank you for the opportunity to come this evening. I know there has been a significant amount of Facebook chatter. I believe my client did respond early on to a couple of those to let folks know that we are early in this process and that as the details are finalized, there's always an intention with this operator to provide community information. We understand we're coming into a residential setting. That is exactly the purpose of these types of buildings and these types of operations. They are, as was indicated, relative to federal law, intended to operate as residences. So a little bit of just sort of general information about the property and kind of next steps here, how we got to where we are and where the next steps are. So this is an 8-bedroom, 3-car detached garage property. It's about 1.4 acres, just under 1.5 acres. So it's rather large as far as residences go in the immediate vicinity. It also has quite an expansive driveway. This is in the B residential district, and as was correctly indicated by Councilman Leonard, the B residential, as well as other residential districts within the township, does follow federal law, which allows for these types of operations. They are considered communal living residences, sober living environments. There are 2 specific requirements under the code when a sober living environment or a communal living residence is proposed. One is that you meet the parking requirements, and the other is that the facility or the building be sprinklered. This building is not presently sprinklered, but will be. So the requirements are that at the time of or just prior to occupancy, the sufficient required parking is provided and that the building be fully sprinklered. So those things both have to happen before anyone can move in to this building. With that sort of as the backdrop, we submitted in September of 2025 a request for a zoning determination before my client purchased the property to confirm our understanding of the zoning code, that in fact the township was following federal law here, and that as a result, based on the size of this property, the configuration of the property, and the availability of space in the garage and on the parking areas, that the residents would be permitted as a communal living, sober living environment for up to 14 individuals plus 1 resident staff member. And again, at the time that we submitted that, we included a diagram showing anticipated parking. I will say the code for that configuration requires 12 parking spaces. We have more than sufficient space within that existing driveway for 12 vehicles, should it ever be needed. However, in these situations, typically, more often than not, residents do not have vehicles of their own. So there may be a staff member who lives on site who has a vehicle, and there's space for the township inspectors, et cetera, who may come and go. But other than that, we don't generally need more than a couple parking spaces, but this property does meet the requirements relative to the parking that is required. We did receive a zoning determination in November of last year confirming that the property was permitted in the B residential district as described for communal living, sober living environment, again, for up to 14 individuals plus 1 resident. That is really where we are at this point. We had a follow-up question for the code staff as to the type of sprinkler that would be required here, because there are different sprinkler requirements depending on the various building codes. We received confirmation as to the type of sprinkler that will be needed here, and that is presently out for bid. So as soon as we receive and accept a sprinkler bid, we anticipate coming in with the building permit at that time, which would allow for the sprinkler retrofit. There are no other proposed changes, either outside or inside, to this property. The very idea behind these kinds of facilities, these sober living residences, is that folks are living in a residential setting as a residential family. So they share meals. It's not an institutional setting. They all have chores, just like you and I have chores, and our children may have chores. Everybody is sort of living together. They're working together. The vast majority of information and studies out there show that the single best indicator of success in recovery is this type of residential environment and living together with other folks who are also in recovery. And I think that is a really important kind of distinction here that often gets missed under the federal law. Under federal law, these individuals are required to be in recovery. They cannot be in active addiction, excuse me. So this is not a detox center. That happens elsewhere for individuals. This is usually much further down the road for folks. This is when they've been in recovery for a while. They're in a position where they're ready to sort of restart their lives. These are bankers and teachers and your friends and mine who are trying to recover and trying to restart their lives. And this is an opportunity for them to do so in a very supportive and again, residential setting. A couple words about licensing and voluntary versus involuntary submission to standards. In Pennsylvania, the only facilities that are licensed by the Department of Welfare are facilities that are accepting federal or state money. If you accept federal or state money, you are then obligated to accept anyone that the feds or the state sends to you. So this is not a facility that is licensed through the state for that very reason. These are private facilities that allows them to control who they're accepting. There are other places, other facilities for folks who perhaps have, violent felonies, Megan's Law, all the sorts of things that folks worry about, and understandably so. Those are not the individuals that are generally accepted into these types of facilities. And so there's no license that's granted under the state for this type of facility specifically because they don't then want to be obligated to accept anyone who the state or the feds may send their way. That is not to say, however, that they don't comply with the licensing requirements. So if you look at the state's licensing requirements and some of the county voluntary organizations that have suggestions as to operating procedures, policy manuals, those types of things. My client and most sober living facilities do actually have and voluntarily submit to those additional requirements. So there are policies and procedures in place that are typically, what we do is we package those all together, we share them with the township before occupancy. We also typically like to meet with township staff so that they know who's going to be there, what's coming, what that's going to look like, how operations will go from day to day. We also always provide not just my contact information, but my client's contact information and direct contact information for the resident advisor who lives in that home as well. So there's always easy ways to get a hold of folks if there are questions or concerns. This client has not yet made a final determination on exactly who will be in this home. That usually happens as we get a little further along in the process. It has a lot to do with what's needed in terms of community access. Most residents come from a very small immediate area in these types of homes. So it's a lot of, just sort of decisions at the time, at the start of operations. Is it men only? Is it women only? Where do they need or see the most need in their immediate client base at any given time? So we don't have those immediate answers yet. As we finalize those details, again, always happy to share them. But generally speaking, very straightforward. Again, no real outside changes. The goal is always that if you're driving by, it just looks like anybody else's home. That's how these folks also want to live. They want to be good neighbors. They understand that they're in a residential environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing the proposed plan.
Sorry, and happy to answer questions. I didn't mean to dodge away there, but if council has any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer.
Council members, any questions?
I do have one, just because there was something you mentioned that stuck in my mind, and again, as best as you can answer it.
Sure.
So you mentioned that under federal law, these facilities, in order to be protected under federal law, that the residents must be in recovery. So what happens when there's an issue and the police show up and an ambulance shows up?
Right.
Does that mean that the facility is now no longer under the description of a communal or sober living facility?
No, and that's a great question. It is that individual, right? So each individual is gauged or determined on their own merit, right? So in order to enter the facility, you must be in recovery. In order to stay in the facility, you have to maintain your recovery. So these facilities all have programs in place and policies in place, procedures for, what happens if somebody does relapse, and it does happen, just like it happens, in homes across the country where, somebody is living with their family, with their immediate family. In those situations, there are policies and procedures in place. Those individuals are not then permitted to stay within that residence any longer, and each person has a different sort of plan in place, right? So typically, when somebody enters one of these programs, they fill out, there's a whole bunch of paperwork that goes into it. There's emergency contacts. There's a process in place for each individual that outlines what happens should something happen to them, if they relapse or they have a different kind of medical emergency. Who are their primary contacts? How do we get a hold of those folks? What happens at that point? So if there is an individual who does relapse, they do not return to the home. They are then transitioned out either into another detox or into some other type of facility. So that's generally how that process works.
So it would be fair to say there, there's a zero tolerance policy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does that mean that you're actively drug testing the residents periodically?
I would have to check with my client on exactly how that works, but yeah, there are a whole series of protocols in place in these facilities. The other thing to keep in mind is that there's all kinds of obligations relative to what folks can and cannot do when they're staying in a home like this. So, for example, they have to, generally how you'll hear my client and others describe it is they have to be fully occupied in their time, right? So this is not a situation where somebody can come, they're in recovery, they move in, they're just kind of hanging out watching Netflix for 6 months. That's not how these programs work. These folks are in active recovery. That means that they are in group therapy. They usually have individual therapy as well. Those things are all happening off-site. They're required to either have a job or be in school or in some kind of trade program so that they are sort of reestablishing connections that will set them up to re-enter the rest of sort of their operational society, day-to-day lives. So there are programs that come into play relative to what they can and can't do in terms of drug testing, but typically what you find is that these are addicts know addicts, right? People know what they're seeing, and it's more often than not the rest of the residents in that residence, understand what's going on, and they will often be the first to say, we think there's an issue here. And then yes, if there's any specific concern or feeling that there has been an issue, they can always ask for a drug test. If somebody refuses, that's usually the first indicator that they're not presently doing everything they're supposed to be, and then they're relocated to another facility at that point.
I have a two-part question. Maybe you can answer it, maybe not. But what's the average stay of a person there, and are they allowed to get visitors?
So the first half, I don't want to give you a specific number because it does vary a lot from place to place. Typically, it's 90 days or more, I think, is about the average for these types of facilities. They're not, and again, because these are not detox facilities, right? Those types of facilities, that's typically 30 days or less. It's often, just a week or two before somebody's transitioned on. These are typically longer-term settings. They are residential in nature, so folks are expected to kind of participate in the day-to-day life of that house. And again, studies have shown that that really is a huge positive in terms of long-term recovery when they start to make those kinds of connections. That's not to say that some folks aren't less than that and some folks aren't longer, but it's typically, at least that long, generally speaking. And the second half, I'm sorry. Visitors. That depends on the type of facility ultimately. There are different kind of stages of recovery house that could be identified. Usually, no. Although there are occasionally, there might be a Father's Day, for example, or a Mother's Day, where they may have some visitors. But typically, it's not, they're not there for, family and friends to come visit regularly. There are sometimes when these facilities are set up, depending on sort of how far along in a recovery process a house is focused on. If these are, for example, if the client decided on a focus on longer term recovery where folks had been in recovery for, 9 months, 12 months, that type of thing. Maybe they have jobs. It's a kind of a different setting in that respect, and there might be visitors. But typically speaking, for the most part, in these types of residences, no, they're not. They don't have visitors coming and going. And again, as we get further along, and they make those kinds of decisions about the type of operation or the type of residence that they're accepting, we'll be able to give you more detail about that, certainly. But that's sort of the general kind of 10,000-foot view of what these look like.
Thank you. Additional questions from council? Great. Thank you, Ms. Farrell. Okay, at this time, we're going to open this up to public comment. Just a couple of quick reminders. Again, when you approach the podium, please just share your name and let us know if you're a resident of Plymouth Township. Again, we want you to feel like you have the time to be thorough and share what it is you feel you need to share or ask your questions, but we would ask that you are as concise as possible, just to make sure that everybody in the room who chooses to speak has a chance to speak. One other thing I will invite you to consider, if someone comes up and says exactly what you were thinking, it is within your right to come up and repeat everything they've said. But what I would suggest, just to, again, in the name of being concise, is to say, I agree with everything Mr. Smith just said, and there's one new comment I want to add. So feel free to validate what other people have said or agree with others without repeating it wholesale, just to make sure everyone does have a chance to speak. So the floor is open. Please come up and feel free to comment.
Hi, my name is Marlene Hoffman, and I live at 347 Brighton Road, right next door to the 349. I just want to say that, number one, I listened to what she had to say, and it was very sugar-coated. We're not getting real answers. You had brought up about the parking. The parking is stated that I heard there was going to be 18, 20. She's saying 14. But she's very vague. She's not giving us any answers as far as what they're going to provide there. As far as having it be 30 days, 90 days, 60 days. She's saying it's not a detox center. They're going to come here after detox, and it's going to be a sobriety house. Number one, if they're coming and this is going to be a living environment for 60 or 90 days, would anyone you go to a place for 60 or 90 days and never see a family member? It doesn't happen. Okay, and I'm very, very familiar with how these, and this is labeled, basically they're calling it a sobriety house. It's more so of a rehab. So, they can call it any fancy name they want in modern terminology, but it's a rehab. They're coming, it's communal living. They're not going to be under state and federal, as she had stated. Yeah, because they're going to do personal pay. So the person's going to pay per day is what I understand. So if you're going to go there for a per day, now I want to throw a number that I've heard on Facebook, but I don't know if it's true or not, because we're not getting any valid, conducive answers. I heard $15,000 a month per bed. If that's true, I don't know. I mean, we don't seem to get any real answers from this young woman over here who's representing the owner. And, and as far as visitors not coming, come on. They're going to sugarcoat and say everything that we want to hear, you want to hear, and I know that your hands are tied because of the laws. I get that. But what you're doing is this is very inappropriate, putting and flopping this type of communal living, sobriety house, group home, and that's what they're coming under the radar, calling it a group home, sobriety house. Call it what it is. It's a rehab. It's a rehab. So now we have individuals, and I am not against anyone that's in recovery by any means whatsoever. I lost a 26-year-old son to an accidental overdose. So this hits home to me. And I'm very, very, very much for helping people trying to restart their life. So I feel like a double-edged sword, but now I have it right next door in my community with all of my neighbors who have small children, My neighbor across the street has 2 little children. Next to her has a little girl. On 2 doors up, next to her has a boy and a girl that are young. And then there's a little girl there. We are indebted with all of these people here have children who play in the neighborhoods, walk the neighborhoods. 5 o'clock in the morning when it's still dark out, we have women who are walking the blocks for their exercise. In the evenings, you have people pushing, their baby strollers and walking their dogs. Okay, I'm very familiar with how these programs work. We can sugarcoat it all you want. We are invaded in our community now. 15 people, then they're rotating out. You have family members coming. What are they going to do, stay in a house and not go out? No, they're going to be walking the neighborhood. They're going to be going, and like they have the right to do that. Not saying they don't, they do. I just want answers. And I don't feel like we're getting answers, and I don't feel like you have answers because you didn't give them to us.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman.
Hi, my name is Joan Zomchuk Martin. I live at 348 Cambridge, which is directly behind the proposed site. The first thing that I want to say is we talk about parking. One of my concerns is the garage that was described is actually a historic barn with a placard from 20s or 40s. So I want to make sure that despite right now saying that nothing will be done to that property, that there is historical implications of the farmhouse and the building, which is, first of all, number one. I agree mainly with everything that Marlene said, fivefold. Unfortunately, I've also had a direct family member involved in one of these sober livings. First of all, sober living, I'd like a definition. Is it alcohol or is it drugs? In my family member's case, it was alcoholism. I spoke to her at length about this. As stated, it's not a federal program, so they will not be given people, that people will be there selected. My sister paid $15,000 a month. There's a gentleman currently on Facebook who says that one of the quickest ways to make money in 2026 is through sober living. I have a picture here right now that I took from his website who says what to do in Pennsylvania. Again, in this, the owner does have a business located in the Green Valley across from the pretzel factory, where when I go there to go to my dentist, it's horrendous to see the people out there smoking. It's horrible. But so this individual who quotes a $600 to $900 a month per bed will make a cash flow of $8,000. Now, in my sister's case, a private, no insurance taken, paid $15,000. Do the math, 15,000 times 14. This is a business opportunity. This is a way to make money. I don't believe that this is a way to help those individuals that are there. This is a boutique hotel. That's what this is. And again, I talked to my sister. I asked her. Rules were broken. She says, as a recovering alcoholic, and let me say she's not, because statistics say 60% of these people relapse, more than 60%. She has relapsed. She said, all the great benefits. I said, it's in my backyard. And her quote was, do everything you can to oppose it. Because I live there. These people are creative. They are sneaky, and they will do whatever they can to get their drugs and or alcohol. Absolutely. So this is a family member who's lived it, who thinks the concept is great, but when I said this is going to be around my family, my grandchildren, her thing was do everything in your power to oppose it. And as of right now, she is a raging alcoholic on her way to death. As well, the people that she made friends with in these sober living homes.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Manillo. I live directly across the street at 348 Brighton Road. I'm a Plymouth Township resident, as I have been for most of my life. I grew up on Sheffield Drive, where my parents still live. I love the neighborhood, which is why my husband and I moved back. We moved in with a 3-year-old, gave birth to my daughter last year. Now I have a 4-year-old boy and a 1-year-old girl. We are living directly across the street. And I also have past experience with someone who went through the sober living, went through this, and they're now 6 feet under. It doesn't matter. They're trying to say that it makes a difference, that, oh, it's going to be
It's going to be, you know, not state paid. It's not people on welfare. It's people with money. Honestly, I went to a Catholic high school. People with money are a lot worse. They have low consequences, as you saw with what happened with the unfortunate Plymouth Township Police. That means nothing to me. What matters to me is mine and my family's safety, my children's safety, the safety of the elderly and the disabled in the neighborhood. And when and if and when, because it will, something will eventually happen, who is going to be liable? Because I will sue the business as well as the township.
Thank you for your comments.
My name's Sean Maxwell. I live at 351 Brighton. I'm right next door to the farmhouse. The lack of information and transparency is appalling. First of all, that it went through. If my neighbor wants to put up a fence, you know, it's a big to-do. Everyone's got to get here and vote on it. But that thing went right under our noses. We have a woman that moved in 2 weeks ago, and now they have to deal with this. Their house value probably dropped $150,000 in 2 days. The other transparency, is it going to be sober living or is it going to be mental patients? Because that's another safety issue, probably worse than the alcoholics and drug addicts. And I had both on my side of my family. So one is doing very well, the other one is not. So transparency, if they say they don't know who's housing there yet, how can they just keep saying it's going to be sober living? It could be mental patients. So that's my concern. I have kids. There's kids all through this neighborhood. We've been here for 14 years. My kids were little. They're grown up now, but I have a daughter that's 16, and she has her friends over all the time. And I don't want any fucking wacko perverts anywhere near my children, let alone anybody else's children. And I think it's complete bullshit that this asshole moved into our neighborhood.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Maxwell.
Good evening, Council. Sheldon Simpson, Cloverland, Plymouth Township. I just have one question. I believe we have an ordinance in this township that restricts any more than 3 unrelated people living in a property. And if that's the case, does this special exception for this, or how does that work? And I know I'm catching you off guard with this question, but have we looked into that?
I'll either turn to my left or to my right, but I believe it falls under a different classification because of the protection, if I'm not mistaken.
2020.
Could you repeat that? You weren't.
Apologize, my
That's right.
microphone was not on. The sober house definition was added in around 2020, and this is a by right use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
My name is Tim Knapp. I live at 352 Brighton Road. I'm directly across the street from the house in question. I have some technical questions or considerations about how this got approved. So I was curious if there was a survey to determine the availability of 12 parking spots. Like how was that determined that that amount of real estate is available, the 12 spots, in addition to the 26 feet of aisle that's required for those spots?
Just to be clear, this wasn't something that was approved. It is a by right use. So it wasn't a matter of they came to the township and asked for our approval. It's a by right use.
But it would only be a by right use for them to have 14 people if they can support 12 parking spots.
Township will be confirming with the parking amount that Ms. Farrell stated of how many proposed parking spots the driveway and current parking lot can hold.
And that'll be done by a survey? Is that public record that we can come to a hearing and see
That's
that?
code enforcement. Is that correct, Matt?
Nothing has been approved. Nothing has been approved.
We were under the impression that there was a question asked by the buyer that, do I have enough parking to do what I want to do? And the answer is yes. So that's why he bought the house.
Could we just maybe let Mr. West can kind of take us through the sort of the process or what has been done or what has been done, just to clarify, if that's okay?
Nothing has been approved. An application was received. As part of that application, as has been stated this evening, this is a by right permitted use, with the exception that it requires a parking requirement, right? And so for us to evaluate that, it becomes an administrative exercise since it's by right. We receive an application, our codes department and our zoning officer review it. They do the calculation, they look at the application that's submitted. In this case, I've heard 14 people. We do the numbers, we run the math and say, okay, this is how many parking spaces are going to be required. We then ask for a certified site plan, signed and stamped, showing where those parking spaces will be.
Okay. And those parking spaces will be demarcated so that they can't put 15 or 20 cars in there because there's no markings as to where the vehicles need to go? Is
All
that
they
a
need
code
to show-
requirement?
All they need to show is that the required spaces are available.
But they don't need to be marked? So how do we enforce the parking? How do we know he's not going to put 20 people in there? And
An
have
enforcement
17,
problem.
and have 17 cars in the parking lot? I'd like to ask that that be done if that's the case. We need some type of enforcement to
Yeah,
prevent
so
extra
that was it.
occupants and extra parking.
That was explained through the process that if and when approved, it would then move into a rental property inspection. And we look at those typically annually. And we would use that opportunity to make sure that all of the health, safety, welfare, parking included, since this is a zoning issue, is still being maintained.
So we talked primarily about parking, but, and she mentioned sprinklers. So what other NFPA code needs to be done to that house? Or do they have to meet the state laws for fire safety in that house? Or is it simply putting in sprinklers? We're gonna have a full fire marshal inspection? All residents will have the appropriate egress? Okay. With all that being said, I think it's an absolute travesty that you would put a house that can hold 14 people and have 12 cars going in and out of a parking lot in a very desirable residential neighborhood where it's all families, primarily with a lot of young kids. It's an absolute travesty. And it's not if, the question is why. Why would somebody do something like that? Why? Because of the greed. Yep. Yeah.
Shame on them. It's greed.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Good evening. My name is Mike Hanna. I'm a homeowner on 2905 Sheffield Drive. I am not a resident. I am a resident. I live there, but I don't like the term resident. A resident is somebody in an apartment. So that's why I always classify myself as a homeowner. A couple questions you've answered already for me. And there was a loophole I just heard where right now it was a single-family residential zoning that it was, right? This loophole in 2022 was able to put this facility in as of right into the complex, correct? Or into the zoning?
I don't want to, if that was your question on it. I wouldn't, I guess, describe it as a loophole. So I think I was the only one on council up here in 2020.
Well, it's a loophole, but go ahead.
Well, anyway, so in 2020, we started to have, there were multiple like municipalities around us that were having a lot of these same issues, the same questions and the same types of meetings we're having tonight. At that time, we didn't have anything in the township zoning ordinance relative to sober living homes, sobriety homes. But by Civil Rights Act and Americans with Disabilities Act, they had to be permitted to be existing in residential areas. So what we did in 2020 was we added the definition, I believe, and Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we added the definition in our zoning code for communal living, sober living. I think at the same time, we also differentiated that from like an Airbnb type of setting.
Also changes to the definition of family and to short-term rental, and we put short-term rental only in commercial zoning districts. With regards to sober environments, they were permitted in all residential zoning districts.
And that wasn't, permitting in the residential zoning districts was required. So what we were able to do was add the parking specifications that weren't in there before. So essentially in 2020, we added the definition, we added the parking restrictions, but even prior to that, they would have been permitted in residential zoning districts.
Fair Housing Act, just to clarify your prior statement, Mr. Monero.
Yeah, so
And
the
it-
terminology, single-family dwelling, R2, has nothing, I mean, you just blown out the window. You can put 15, 16 people unrelated in a house and rent it, or not, basically they're renting, it's a hotel. They come in, they do their job, as I mentioned before, they pay, and then they leave.
Except, again, I guess I believe that because of the Americans with Disabilities Act recognizing those in recovery as covered under disabilities, which don't hold me to it. I mean, I should know this. I teach it, but I believe it was like 1990. That would put them in a different definition than, say, somebody renting a house to just a bunch of unrelated people. Is that correct?
As it goes through the rental process, the Township Code Office would review if there was hypothetically a request in a, we'll say, a 3-bedroom house to rent 18 people. That likely would potentially be denied depending on how the review was being done. But it would go through the same review to make sure that building and fire codes are met and other code enforcement issues are protected as a part of the review process.
It also, if, I don't want to put her on a spot, but you're supposed to also have, somebody will be giving you an operating license, correct?
So,
and that operating license would be from the DDAP, is that correct? That's the Department of Drug and Alcohol Program, that's usually your operation license. And the other thing I have is, will there be any association with the PAR, which is a Pennsylvania Alliance of Recovering Residents? That is another organization, whether it's a private.
or if you could direct your questions to us,
Okay.
while we appreciate the Property Owners
Sure.
Council being here in providing that introduction, we're
Okay, well, let me start over again.
Mr. Hatt,
with
I
the
do think one question you asked in terms of the
Operating license.
the operating license, I believe would only apply to those that are receiving state money. So I guess that was kind of the difference between if you receive state funds, you're required to have that, and if you're not receiving, then you're not required to have that.
Right, but
I
there-
believe.
There should be some type of operational license, I would think, as if you run a hotel, you need a license to run a hotel. This is a hotel. So I would presume, or maybe it might fall under the PARR, Pennsylvania Alliance of Recovery Residents. Don't know. And you should all know that because you've approved it, or not, it's not approved. You're doing through the process. You're doing your due diligence, let's say that. And then the next one is the oversight of the MOUD. That's the medication of opioids and use disorder. You know there will be, and it's not a recovery, it's a sobriety house. But the owner has to disclose, will there be drugs in the house? And I'll tell you right now, yes, there will. There will be methadone. There will also be Narcan, which you need, which I understand that, and Suboxone, which is medicine you use in a case of a relapse, kind of to bring them through till somebody gets there. I'm not a expert in this field, but you know, I did a little bit of homework, and most of my background is I do medical facilities, and you know, I've been doing them for a few years. The next question I have, or not question, but clarification, is you didn't have to change the zoning because of the loophole on getting the other people in there as far as the multi-resident, non-related family, okay? How are you going to, I guess, manage that and control that with the 3-month turnaround? So when you have a 3-month turnaround, 14 people, that's not a stable environment. It's a residential area we live in. And, you know, you've mentioned that you live real close, right there, and you're supporting it. I understand that. But, you know, it's just...
To be clear, I didn't say that I was supporting it.
Okay. So you didn't say you weren't supporting it. Are you not supporting it? Either or, you know, you can...
No comment. It's
Okay.
also not a loophole, it's a law.
Yeah, Well, a loophole in the law, they're about the same. It's a definition of who has the better attorney. That's all it is. So, with that, it's really sad. Like I said, I've been a homeowner here since '87. And I am a homeowner, not a resident. I don't live in an apartment. So I have a horse in the race. And, I'm really disappointed. Not disappointed your hands were tied because of the legality and how the loopholes, again, not your definition, of how they were able to have this in here. So good luck with the council, and we'll see you at re-election.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hannah.
Hi, Joanne Getzey. I live on Cambridge Road. I'm a Plymouth resident.
I'm sorry, can you say your name again?
Joanne Getzey.
Thank you.
I'm a Plymouth resident. I live on Cambridge. I agree with everything you said. I'm sorry for your family. I am one of the ladies who walk the neighborhood. You probably see me early in the morning. I am the person walking all over the place. I always walk down Brighton Road. I won't when that comes. There's no way I'm going to walk down past that house. There's no way. I live a block away, so this hits home. Not only do I walk in the morning, but there's also there are a lot of school buses and a lot of bus stops around that neighborhood. Well, because you live in Weymouth, but there's school buses along Sheffield, right on the corner where the home is. And that concerns me that little children will be coming out. And also in the winter, a lot of kids have to go to school on the school bus early in the morning. It's dark out. So they're passing the house in that neighborhood in the dark. And that concerns me a lot for the children in the neighborhood. I also don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't know if you know this, but I know the owner has outpatient facilities, but I don't think he has another residential facility. So I'm wondering if this is his first trial at a residential facility, in which case we are the guinea pigs. And that concerns me a lot. What disappoints me a lot, honestly, is that we found out about this on Facebook. And to me, that's completely unacceptable in a town like Plymouth meeting. That is just unacceptable. I pass that house all the time when I walk. Again, I won't, but I do. There was no sign. I realize now you didn't have to have a sign for any kind of zoning ordinance. But the fact that we had to find out on social media is just so disturbing. And texting back and forth, and we're trying to figure out what time is even the meeting and how many people, 15, 20. It's all these rumors and innuendos on Facebook, and that's just not okay in Plymouth meeting. We should find out the right way. And so I am disappointed that we found out on social media, and that we're all scrambling trying to figure out what's going on. That's why there's so many people here, because no one's telling us anything. I think the owner should meet with us. I think the owner, not just the attorney, but I think that the owner should come here to talk to us, to talk to you, to answer our questions, because obviously we have a lot. And also, whatever happens, I think there has to be a way that we can all get updates. I don't know how you're going to post it, or put it, but we all need a place to talk to you and get your updates as you find things out, because otherwise it's all these innuendos on Facebook, and that's just not going to be a way that we can move forward in this town. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Lydia Kahn, I live on Sheffield Drive, 2995 Sheffield. I needed some clarification if there was any kind of, well, first off, we were told that there were 8 bedrooms, and the listing on the house said 6 bedrooms. So we were also told there was nothing going to be changed inside the home other than sprinklers. So I'm kind of questioning that. 6 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, 15 people. Are there any kind of laws or regularities about how many bedrooms or people versus how many bathrooms and that kind of a thing in a communal home? The other thing I was wondering about, I had read up that in a sobriety home, people have a success rate if they stay 12 months is the best. They can stay 6 months and it's a pretty good success rate, but not as good as 12 months, and yet we're being told 90 days. So that cycling just doesn't sit well with me. People cycling in and out. Now, you might mention that I had a house across the street that rented rooms to people, and there was something about not having family members, so many people, and I understand this is different, but the people cycling in and out, it was very disturbing, and it got to the point they were actually squatters when the homeowner wasn't on site. So that was it's still very concerning because it's an abandoned house. No one here has mentioned the value of our home properties.
Yes, they did.
You did?
Sean's Brothers.
Okay. You know, that is definitely a concern. Obviously, we've all just lost the value of our home. Trying to market our area, if I were looking for a new home, this would be a deterrent to look in that neighborhood, and that's very concerning. Obviously hits us in the pocketbook while this other person's making all this money. Not fair. What about 15 people, one house, and the kind of trash that's going to be put out? I mean, that's just, you know, we all have a limited space on the sidewalk to put our trash out. 15 people, that's a lot, and that's concerning as well. So those are just things that had not been brought up, and I will say that I've agreed with absolutely everything that has been said by everybody here. I feel blindsided. Thank you.
My name is Marco Dodar. I'm a Plymouth Township resident. I do have some questions. I agree also that I think the attorney's comments were rather obtuse about what she described and how these applications were made. I understand that there's special exceptions and that it does fall into a by right use, but I also saw that the listing did not reflect the ability to accommodate 14 residents, so I do wonder how that would be possible in terms of just having 6 bedrooms. And if that's the case, was there a reasonable accommodation that was applied for? Do we know? Does anybody know? Because with by right use, apparently a reasonable accommodation can be added on to the application. And if that's the case, I believe that may be where the township negotiates with the attorney and the client about how many residents could actually live in this type of facility. So I have those questions, and I don't understand what would be considered a family. So if there's 15 people that are living there concurrently, I take exception to the amount of trash and traffic that will be coming out of this facility. But I would like to know if there was a reasonable accommodation applied for. That question being answered would be really useful, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if that exception was applied for, I would really appreciate another session where we could have public comment, maybe get some more answers about how that was granted or not granted, or how it won't be granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barry Boscott. I live at 347 Brighton Road. Been a Plymouth Township resident since 1972. I want to answer this guy's question here. I'm very familiar with the house because my wife and I were actually, from just signing on the dotted line just to buy it. But we walked away because the basement flooded. I didn't want to have a swimming pool in the basement. And the carriage house. To answer your question, the carriage house next door is 2 bedrooms. That's a separate, it's not connected to the house. So you go upstairs, you have one big giant master bedroom with a big bathroom facing Brighton Road. So I'm very familiar with the inside of the house looks like. I'm a little bothered. I mean, I don't know about my wife as much as I am, but I don't know if anybody even knows the history of the house. Since 16, you're a teacher, but that property was actually owned and bought from William Penn back in 1682. I don't even know if anybody even knows that. The trash, she mentioned the trash, whoever brought it up over here. Since that's a business, we shouldn't be paying for their trash to be picked up from Plymouth Township. John brought up 5,600 calls this past year. John, it's going to double. I'm going to be calm, I'm telling you. I'm going to tell you right now. I own a security company. I have very sophisticated camera systems. If police need it, if you need it, people come in, go in. It's all kinds of stuff. There's no law saying I can't. What else was there I was going to say? I don't know. Like, I know this guy sent his lawyer here, like my wife said, and several people. They heard on Facebook this. They heard on Facebook that. They heard on Facebook this. Hearsay. I don't want to go by hearsay. If this guy has some pants and some gonads, he would have been here tonight to answer our questions. But he's not here, so unfortunately, we gotta go and I'm tell you right now. I see him when I'm in my house. I see him. I'm stopping him on the street before he gets into his property. The dumpster, make sure Hey, Matt, hello, I'm talking to you. I know you're over there sleeping, so pay attention to me, please. Parking, make sure that you do the parking spots, you gotta take in count to a dumpster. That dumpster's gonna take up another spot or two. I know they're not gonna think about it. I do assessments on these kinds of things already. Like I said, I do security in some of these, facilities. I'm just, like I said, I'm not happy because of these, my neighbors aren't happy, my wife's not happy, I'm not happy, but I know your hands are tied. I understand that, but, that's all I got to say.
Hi, Kristen Bale. I live on Weymouth Road. Just a quick question. As I'm sitting here listening, the homeowner's attorney mentioned that they think there's going to be 14 patients and one live-in employee. Is that number 14 based on what is allowed for the parking? Can she answer that?
I'm sorry, can you just clarify your question?
Yes. She said they anticipate 14 people, patients living in the home. Is that number 14, how did they come up with the number 14? Is that because that's all that's allowed based on the parking spots? Because my question, if that's not answered, is my understanding is a lot of these patients will not have cars. And so therefore those parking spots will not be an issue, which means could there be 25 people living there? I looked at the house. Some of those bedrooms are bigger than my whole first floor. So you could easily fit 6 people, 6 single beds in one of those bedrooms. So I'm just curious, is 14 based on, because that's all the cars we can have, but if there aren't more cars, there could be 20 or 25 people in there. Thank you.
We appreciate your question. And as we said, we did not want this session to become peppering Ms. Farrell with questions, but your question is noted in terms of numbers, and where the council can get back with information, we will, but noted. Thank you.
My name is Pat Beers. I'm on Cambridge Road. My husband and I bought that house because we ventured through all the neighborhoods and we loved it. I've been here for 50 years. And none of this has been going on like that. I've been in that house 4 or 5 times. I knew the prior owners. You can put 30 people in there. And there was one of those halfway houses. My granddaughter looked at them. They had bunk beds, and a regular bedroom. They had 6 people in that room. That house could put more than 30 people in it. And I have a question. I'd like to know what if you could give me a paper or something to tell me what time or when these people have to keep the noise down. Okay?
I mean, they would be responsible for following all of the noise ordinances of the township.
Yes.
So they would not be exempted in any way from that. They would not be exempted from the township's noise ordinance. So are you just asking what the ordinance is?
I want to know what the ordinance
Okay.
is. I live directly up against that house. They're in my backyard, and I assume a lot of people, 15 people, I think it's going to be more, there's going to be a lot of noise, and I have to report it to the police. And they're going to say, well, what's going on? How do you say that you have a noise ordinance?
Understood. We'd be happy to share the noise ordinance with you.
I'd like that. And I'd like to know how to contact the attorney that is in here for representing the owner of this building. Could you give me a card or something?
Again, if you can just address your questions to us, and where it's
Okay.
where it's appropriate to do so, we can provide contact information, but
Okay.
we'll take that
Okay.
under
Fine.
advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, my name is Nick Salamone, and I live in Plymouth Township for 60 years, born and raised in that township. My question is, what is council going to do to represent the people of the township? Okay, I hear all these regulations. I hear that there's an attorney here, right? But does council have an attorney that's going to look into this? Everybody says, well, it's this law, that law, this law. I don't believe there's nothing you can do about it. I think it's up to council to hire an attorney that knows what he's doing. We're setting up, let me talk, okay? Why doesn't council hire an attorney? You represent the people. I mean, my wife walks that every day, as you know, okay? I've been in this township, I don't cause trouble, all right? There's children walking the streets in this house by themselves, going to school, playing baseball. There's only two people that live in that community, you and, of course, other councilman. The rest of you people don't live there. But if it happened in where you live, I'm sure you wouldn't be happy about it. But I think you should get a lawyer to look into this, okay? Just say, well, this law, that law, this law. I'm not a lawyer, and neither are you. So I think you should hire a lawyer who knows what he's doing. That's all I have to say, nothing else.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Salamone.
Hi, I'm Gwen Swift. I live on Brighton Road, up the street from the residence. I submitted last week a standard right to know law request form, and I'm still looking for answers on that. But my other question is, once, say this does get approved and everything else, what guarantees are there that we have in this township that doesn't allow the owner to decide to take federal money and convert this into a facility?
Your question is noted.
Okay, that's all I have.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Bram. I live on Knoll Road, and I'm new to the neighborhood. I've only been there a few years, but I've been part of this community for a long time. I just had a couple questions that I wrote down. They're generic questions. How many examples of sober living homes do we have in Plymouth Township?
Matt, do you know if we have, I mean, I know there's communal living, but I don't know if we know offhand which classifications they fit in.
I don't mean communal living, I mean
The group- we group
sobriety
them.
living.
I don't have that distinction.
I would think people would remember if it's come up before, because I would think that particular neighborhood would want to speak out, just like my neighborhood
I guess
has.
to that point, I can say that that has not come up in any of our neighborhoods.
Is that right?
Not since, I mean, not when I was on council, so.
Okay.
Obviously, the issue in surrounding communities has come up, but I don't think we've had an issue like this, where people have, it doesn't mean that one hasn't opened that nobody knew about and nobody talked about, but it hasn't come up in terms of like this context. Does that make sense? I mean, does that
Not
answer?
really.
Well, no, I'm just.
Not really.
I'm honestly just trying to answer
No,
your
no,
question.
no,
Like
I know.
in 8 years, nobody has come up here and talked about a recovery home that's coming up in their neighborhood. So, so again, I'm just telling you my experience. I have
Yeah.
not experienced that myself.
We moved from Conshohocken, and I'm assuming that there could be an example in Conshohocken. Okay, then so there is an example. My other question, I heard her reference Megan's Law. How do those under Megan's Law get screened? Is that something that actively would be done by the owner, or is it partly the township's responsibility to screen all these people coming in periodically for Megan's Law? I know when I look at homes, I own still a couple in Conshohocken. I own our current home. You know, that's something that I like to look at the map and see where I wouldn't necessarily want to live right around someone who's under Megan's Law. And that's something I'm just curious about, because you have people, we're not sure, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, that they're going to be living in this facility, and it's a lot of turnover. So I'm curious how that will be addressed. Is it something that you know the answer to, or maybe not? No. That would be a good question to ask the owner. Is it something that he's responsible for, or is it partly something that the township may be responsible for? The last question about can they change their mind about federal money was a good one. My final question is related to, could they knock the building down and build a larger one? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
and that might be not an answer
I
you
think
have
that's
right now.
probably like could anybody knock down their current house and rebuild, and they would have to go through all sorts of like land development
Yeah,
processes.
I'm just
stuff
curious,
like that,
because
so.
I know that.
And I don't know.
sounds like
And I don't
more-
know. I know people talk about the historic. You know, I don't know if there's currently historic protections on any part of that property.
You know, and hearing about the historic nature, you know, does that influence anything with this property? And I'm assuming that it hasn't, because it's already been approved. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robb.
Hi, my name is Jenna Kahn. I grew up on Sheffield. I now own a house on Church. I'm 27 years old. I just got engaged. And I had a lot of dreams about raising a family in this neighborhood. My favorite pastime is to ride my bike. You guys probably know me. I feed your animals treats on my little routes, and I love the cats and the dogs. My favorite thing is sitting by the creek. I don't really feel safe doing that anymore. I don't feel safe walking around my own neighborhood. Frankly, I'm kind of scared. And I don't know if the owner is in this room right now, but I would just really like to urge him to take a look at how many people showed up, because we don't want this. And if he's going to preach about helping people and helping change lives, I think he should take a look at, what about my life, and what about her life, and what about everybody's in this room's lives who are going to be uprooted and changed and in a way that we don't want. I mean, this isn't his neighborhood, it's our neighborhood. And I think we've made it clear that we don't want that here. And I just think that for somebody who preaches so much empathy, if he's in this room, I would just like to say that you should really take a look at how many people showed up tonight and what that might mean moving forward.
Thank you.
So you guys obviously really don't know anything besides Chris and Kristen. You're familiar with the scenario going on here, but everyone else, excuse me, is really oblivious to how tight and family-oriented this neighborhood is. When is there going to be transparency with who is living at these places? Like, I need to know that. Like, if they're going to be people coming from a psychiatric ward, or are they going to be coming from an AA or a recovery house to live there? That's a big difference to me. Because, I mean, everyone makes mistakes, everyone has issues, but that's a big issue. If someone snaps that has a mental problem, that they could take out 6 people in one room. Like, this isn't a little deal. It's a big deal. And the other thing that's kind of been skipped over here is our houses have been at the top peak for resale. We're like at the top, or maybe come down a little bit, but we dropped like $120,000 off the bat with that guy moving into our neighborhood. Easy. So if I'm moving into a neighborhood and there's a sober house next to me and I love this house, that's too bad. I'll find another house. I'm not buying that one. So he's screwing our whole values of our existing neighborhood up anyway. So I just need some clarification and some transparency with everything, but she don't even look at me, so that's all I got. I know everyone here is pissed. I have a business. I hope he has a business license. Did he apply for that yet? Because I have a business, I have to do it every year and pay my business privilege tax and everything. So I'm hoping this guy, maybe the lawyer will know if he even has a license registered with the township yet. That's about it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, just because we're not commenting doesn't mean that we haven't heard anything recently, but they live in your neighborhood. They understand it a little bit better. We care. We're going to try to get you the answers that we can get, but it's not like we don't. I mean, I'm just trying to hear. Right, I understand. I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that we're not oblivious. And we do care. Sure.
Yeah, my name's Dana Van Coyley. I live at 2979 Sheffield. So I actually share a property line with this sober living house that's coming in. This is going to be hard for me because I feel strongly on both sides of this, okay? And the reason that I do is we have many friends who live in group homes. I have an intellectually disabled daughter. The best ones are the ones that are governed and have the national certifications, and there's a reason for that. And I know your hands are tied with that because I know this is federal law. I've heard the loophole. So this gentleman came into the neighborhood and he's asking us to respect his clients because when they are in recovery, they are considered people with disabilities. My daughter was born with her disability. There's no chance for her to not have that disability. Her whole life is being uprooted by this sober house. And the reason that I'm saying that is, and I invite you all, you can all come to 2979, you can come in my backyard, and you can see what I'm gonna be seeing. It's a cyclone fence. In 20 years, I've never felt the need to put up that privacy because there was always a single family on the other side of that fence who we took the time to get to know, introduced my daughter to. They got to know her. They knew when she was having one of her bad moments, much like all of these people who are sitting here know if she would wander from the home and elope, how to get her back. That is all being taken from us because of the transient residents in this neighborhood now. So there's going to be no additional things done to the property. There has to be trees and a fence, as far as I'm concerned. It's not a single family living there now. It's 15 individuals that are living there. And I'm gonna be honest, well, I'm just saying what they're saying. I all know it's gonna be more because no one's governing them, okay? I know it's selfish. I'm talking up here about my daughter. She's protected under these same laws. So this is why I'm here. You know, how are they going to help me teach her now when she encounters one of these people? And I'm all about bettering yourself. I am. She has mental health issues as well. A whole nother thing. If she says something flippant and they overreact, what do? They're coming into her space. Her whole sense of security that we have spent over 17 years of her life building, it's being disrupted. And you can say it's not, and you can say these people are going to make good choices. When you are in recovery, you are not your best self. You are not making the best choices. So who's going to protect her? Are they going to provide me with social stories so I can explain what is happening in that house? I think the transparency goes a long way. I will welcome, I think it's a Mr. Wilson, is that who bought the property? I would welcome a conversation with him. I'm afraid to approach him from some of the things I saw that he texted back neighbors and what he put on Facebook. I don't put my business on Facebook like that, but I need a real serious conversation with him. I am not against this. I'm a firm believer of the FHA. I know many people have benefited from it. But this has to be done with some governance. And we can't just allow this to come in and
it not affects the people who have been there for 20 years. And mostly, you know, I have 2 other teenage daughters. We have a pool. You know, that's our safe zone. We have spent over 17 years making 2979 her safe haven. She can be herself. She can have her meltdowns without any repercussions. I need that to continue. And I need to know how to help her through this and explain what is happening on the other side of that fence and to protect her, quite honestly, because with the intellectual disability, she doesn't sense danger. So if someone's having a moment of relapse, she doesn't know. If something gets dropped along that fence line, she needs to know not to touch it now. She hasn't done that for 17 and a half years. We haven't had to worry about that. So I know you don't have answers for me. I know you don't have comments. I really think if we can get the homeowner to sit down with even at least the people who he shares a property line on. There's no way you go onto that property and don't realize how many other properties you share that property line with. And I don't know if you're familiar with how it's set up. You probably can't visualize it. You two might be able to visualize it a little more. It butts up against, how many properties? Do we even know? How many share a property line with? That's how many are sharing a property line with this facility, okay? So I just wanted to make that point too, because I don't think that's been made yet tonight. I don't know. So I think there needs to be several more discussions, and I really welcome some transparency. And we obviously are not getting any of that.
Thank you for your comments.
Wow, that was very emotionally moving. I'm so sorry for that woman. Lydia Kahn, 2995 Sheffield Drive. I just wanted to, you may have said this, but I wanted to make clear when and how are we going to get answers to our questions?
So I think, well, we can't necessarily tell you when or if or how you would get answers from the property owner. I think we can try. I can't tell you that right now.
Can you
I
get the
can tell
answers
you-
and then convey them to us?
We can try. We can try. I'll just say right now, I will commit to trying to get every question answered that everybody has.
Thank you.
If there are questions that we can ourselves clarify based on, like, you know, inspections policy, those kind of things, yeah, that's the easier part. But I will do everything I can do to help you get the answers from them that you want. I just can't give you a day, but
Well, I just
will
think
try.
that, yeah, but how is that going to be conveyed to everybody? Because we're not like an organized group. Obviously, we have the Facebook page, but it's kind of like, you know, I don't know when their questions are going to get answered, but they had the same questions I did. So I'd like to know the answer to everybody's question or some sort of way that we're going to be able to follow up on all this. So we've aired our grievances, but it's not good enough. We want the answers. The other thing I wanted to ask, you had touched on other sobriety homes in the township. I wonder if our chief of police would have any comments on issues that may have come up with other sobriety homes, or is that something that we need to be prepared for? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So to respond to your question about how you'll get answers, and I appreciate, I mean, Chris has mentioned he'll do whatever he can. We all will do whatever we can to find answers to your questions. Understanding that some things may not be available to us either. All right, I mean, as we can ask certain questions, but with any property owner, there are certain things they're not required to reveal if they choose not to. So we will do our best to get answers. I would suggest that maybe in terms of getting those out, I would like us collectively sort of to avoid social media as the means of communicating on this topic. I don't think it's productive or thorough.
Well, what would be your
But,
other choice? We have
well,
no other choice.
I was going to suggest one. What I would suggest is we could start a list, maybe a sign-in list, if before you leave today, if you're willing to give us your name and an email address. That might be a means of us getting to you with updated FAQ sheets, with additional information when we have it. If there's any other event or gathering where something will be discussed and you might want to hear about it, that might be a way for us to get to you directly, avoiding social media in the middle. So if everybody is in agreement with that, we'll make sure before you leave, sign a sheet, name and email address, and we will do our best to use that as a means of connecting. Does that sound fair?
That's fair. I would like to suggest to my fellow neighbors that maybe we should have some sort of organized list ourselves. You know, if we want representation as a group, as a whole, I think we have power in numbers more so. So I would suggest maybe, I don't know, if we need to go door to door and get petition signed, that we have a way of communicating with each other that's not just from the council, no offense to you guys, but we're representing ourselves as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had one other request. This meeting is videotaped, correct? Okay.
That is correct.
Could you also, because I run an awful lot of meetings myself, and they're always controversial, but what I do is, after I have my video done, they transcribe it. Could you do a written transcription on that? You can do that through the way you videotape it, and then make that available for our records?
Matt, is that?
You can, it's all public knowledge. I mean, this is a public meeting, so
Yeah.
I don't know why you can't.
Our meetings are posted, so
Yeah.
this is live
No,
streamed.
but recording the history.
Yes.
Recording what was discussed from beginning of the meeting at 6 o'clock all the way through. All you do, you take that on your computer. I don't know how to do it. My people know how to do it. They push a bunch of buttons. Next thing you know, I have a written transcript. And that's what I think you should do.
Well, we'll note your request, and that
Yep.
could be part of our communication back in terms of the feasibility of doing that. But thank you for the suggestion.
Okay, you really should look into it. You really should.
We will. Thank you.
Marco Jadaro again, hi. There was one more note that I'm not sure that I elaborated on. If this owner, I think zoning or somebody may be able to speak to this when you follow up with this, I'm sure they've done due diligence as well, but if this owner has applied for a reasonable accommodation to increase the number of residents under the Fair Housing Act, I think that, again, this should be disseminated to all of us in a way that is going to be transparent in terms of how that's going to be discussed or parsed out. All right, because if he is legally, and I'm not an attorney, but if he's legally allowed to only have 8 based on bedrooms and such, a special exception, reasonable accommodation application that he were to make with the township should be denied, in my opinion, for anything above the bedrooms that are allowed in this building. And I think that's non-negotiable.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Sandy. I live on Brighton Road. Again, like everybody else, very upset about the whole situation. I'm one of the women who walk the neighborhood. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and it relates to your snow, we've had 3 snows. I walk on the sidewalk, other people walk in the street. That property has not been shoveled, nor salted, or anything. If any of you have been on Brighton Road, the parking situation is outrageous. You can maybe turn the corner and maybe get up, and even one of the school bus drivers, like, you guys have an emergency, you're not getting help because it's just park, 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 park. There's so many cars on that street. Is street parking going to be allocated as part of their spots for this facility? I don't know. Again, very upset with the lack of transparency. I know it's not your fault, but, and as far as, excuse me, as far as communicating, can't you put something on the township page? Like if, rather than get our emails, I have no problems giving an email, and I will share it with anybody. But is it possible to put something on the township page for those who don't have emails or don't want to give their emails?
We could do both.
Okay,
I'm
thank
sure
you.
we could.
Good evening. My name's Eric Schwartz. I'm 2981 Sheffield. My backyard is right up against it. I'm also the house that is lit up, blinking all Christmas season. So I do contribute to some of the traffic in the neighborhood, but I try to have that light show off at a reasonable hour. To me, I wanted my name of record, so that's why I came up here, but I do share the sentiments of many people that have come up tonight, so I'm not going to rehash that stuff. But for me, it's about risk management. I'm an engineer by trade. It's all about risk. It's not just about the risk for the neighborhood. It's also about the risk management of the people that are being proposed to live in this facility. I think it's the responsibility of this township, of the board in front of me, to weigh all those options, which I'm sure you will. I've heard things tonight that concern me, and of course we don't have necessarily control over that, but when you have 14 people living in a home and then you have one person managing that, I can't manage my 3 kids. And we've had conversations about how these individuals are trying to have a normal life and have the freedoms and responsibility and take that on. Again, those people are in that, those individuals are going to be in that home, and they're going to be trying to find things to do. They're going to be outside. They have the right to be outside. It's a human being night. They're not going to be in there watching Netflix and all that, and they're going to be going to jobs without cars, so they're going to be walking through the neighborhood, which everyone has a right, but not everyone can have a 9-to-5 job. They might be working a late night job, and they're coming through. That's risk management, and we have to consider that. So my challenge to us is, if we wait till the end until people are moved in, then we haven't done our due diligence as a community. We haven't done our due diligence as a township. We have to do it now. We can't wait until people are living in there to say, oh, too late, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. That's not fair to the people living in that establishment. That's not fair to the community. So my challenge to this group of individuals in the community is, what tools do we have in our toolbox to mitigate risk? Whether it's an ordinance for fencing, privacy, that's our due diligence. There's other municipalities in this country, in this state, in the southeast Pennsylvania, that have put that in play, have not gotten sued, and are better for it. I'm not against people going through recovery. What I'm against with is uncontrolled recovery for profit. That's what I'm against. I don't know if it's for profit. I had a good conversation with the individual of the ownership, and he put it in writing. He's about making people feel better and doing good for the community. If you're doing good for the community and individuals, it's a two-way street. So let's put it out there, and let's put it out in his hands, in his court, of saying, hey, township wants this, township wants that. Put it out there. There's plenty of people, individuals that are not in the heat of the fire that can come up with solutions that we can put. You said that this happened in 2022 or 2020, and all we right now is a parking ordinance. There's probably more out there. There's more meat on the bone that we can make to mitigate risk. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Schwartz. Other comments?
Phil Jansen up on Knoll Road. First, I want to thank you for your public service. I know it's a very thankless job. My dad did it for many, many years. My only comment that this is a hotel cloaked in the guise of sober home. If this had federal funding or state funding, there would at least be inspections. This is none other than somebody trying to profit off of the well-being of other people. And the fact that it is going into a community and into a neighborhood, in the center of the neighborhood, is disgusting. And I know that the law was written to help the Fair Housing Act. It didn't need to be in law. It just said you couldn't have a law saying you can't do this. And we put it in law, and I understand you probably had good intentions behind it, but this is a disgrace for Plymouth and for everybody in this room. So thank you very much.
Thanks for comments.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be here. I appreciate your comments, Lynn, about not taking the issue to social media, but that's not always the best way to do stuff. But quite frankly, many of us wouldn't be here if it wasn't for talking Plymouth and East Valley Plymouth neighborhood, because nobody knew anything about it. You guys said that there were negotiations happening since last September.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you just give us your name and if
Oh,
you're
I'm
a Plymouth
sorry.
resident?
Dave Siegler. I'm a
Thank you.
23-year resident of Sheffield Drive.
Thank you.
And my property is right next to Eric's The Light Show guy. So I understand. So anyway, the part that's most disturbing to me is that this whole thing is predicated upon a law that says we have to be tolerant of everybody else. Well, you know, we are all multi-year, multi-decade residents of this township. We pay taxes. We have rights. This should be a public discussion, and something should be worked out, and not just say this guy can do whatever he wants. Now, I may not be the most savvy business person in the world, but if you pay $800,000 to $1 million for a piece of property, you darn well have a business plan for it. I don't want to hear that, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet because I haven't figured it out. Yeah, right. So I think we do need to do some due diligence, like Nick said, get an attorney and figure out what's going on in our own township. This is a residential, single-family area, as you well know, and it's desirable because it's that. If that happens, it's not going to be as desirable. values are going to go down, people are going to leave. We all pay taxes here, and so do you. So I just want to add that to what I agree with everything else that was said before, too. And I just think it was really bad that nobody knew anything about all this until somebody decided to announce it on social media. And that's kind of bad. So I think that needs to be improved a lot. So all we want to do is have communication about our own homes on our own street. That's all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just have a follow-up to a question earlier. Is this recovery considered under the Group Home Act, or is it a separate entity on the books? Because I think Plymouth Township has its fair share of group homes and things like that, you know, people need things, but I think we have our fair share of stuff. There's, you know, in our district over there, I know of 3 alone, let alone that. Now, I don't know if this recovery is the same as a group home or falls in the same category as a group home, but, you know, where's our fair share end? I know that we're responsible to have fair housing for everything, but we have fair housing for group homes and things like that. So you know, why we put an ordinance in without any control of residency and how many people per residence? I think that was a bad move on council's part when he put that in. But again, I think we have our fair share of group homes and things like that in the township, and that should be considered when this gets looked at further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Knapp again, 352 Brighton. So there were a couple of folks who came up and suggested that the council, if it's a possibility for the council to get an attorney, I would anticipate that that's a question you can answer. That's probably not something you do, or is it something you do?
My firm is the township solicitor, and we have been reviewing this with the township manager over the past few days.
So you're the council?
Yes,
That's what I, that's what I thought, okay. So give us some answers.
Yeah, because I guess I would speak to the group then, like, if we're not getting answers from council, then we've got to pull together here and get our own attorney. Yep. Hashtag Save Brighton Road.
Hi, Joanne Getzig. I'm sorry, I live in Cambridge. I didn't know who was counsel, but the woman who was here who abuts it with her daughter with disability, and she's a lovely, I've told her she's lovely, I know that young girl. So she has a disabled daughter with a home that's going to abut this. So why did the disability of the people moving in, how does that supersede her daughter's disability? Because her daughter's disability should be protected. So I'm not sure why this group of people with disability is more important than the girl who has a disability who lives right next to the home. Well, yes, certainly all Plymouth residents with disabilities, obviously, and all of us, but certainly the young girl whose house abuts this property because she has a known disability. Thank you for sharing that.
Other questions or comments? Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And even if there's a topic on the table that's challenging or difficult, when there's frustration, we appreciate that you're here engaging with us, asking questions, making comments, sharing your concerns. As we said in the beginning, I hope you don't interpret our lack of having answers immediately as meaning we don't care, we're not capable, or we don't have answers. But in a situation like this, it is our preference to listen, to be thorough, to empathize with what you've said, and we do. We are very empathetic to the fact that you have concerns and you have questions that you feel have not been answered. But at this point, we'd rather not try to respond to every question, but to synthesize everything we've heard, to be thoughtful, and we are committed to getting back to you. We said there'll be two means of sharing information. One, if you'd like to leave your name and email address, that'd be a way for us to communicate with you directly. We could also take the same information and to make it available on the front page of our township website. So if you prefer to look there, and we're happy to do that. I cannot at this moment commit to exactly when that'll be posted. It may take us some time to coordinate, to synthesize everything we've heard, to get answers from people that might have answers. So we'll ask for your patience. Feel free to reach out at any point. If you're wondering if we're still on it or when you might see something, feel free to reach out, but please do give us a little bit of time. It's not going to be posted in the next day or two, but we trust that we've heard you and we're on that. The only other thing I want to comment on is in terms of transparency, I hope you understand that we believe in transparency and we are willing to be as transparent as we can be on this topic. But understanding that this property owner has the same rights you all do. There are certain things we don't and can't ask a homeowner. I mean, we don't track down homeowners and demand information, and this property owner has those same rights. Trust that we will be as transparent as we can be, but know that we may not be able to answer every single question you've asked or find all the information that you'd like right away. Yes, please. If you can just come up just so it'll be captured for the recording.
I have a concern about posting it on the front page of the website because it's not like we really want to draw attention from the whole world about our neighborhood now going downhill. So, you know, there's got to be a way to communicate with us where we're not announcing it to everybody that there's a problem in that neighborhood. Again, if I were searching for a home, I'm going to go over somewhere else. I'm not going to look in that area. It's just, I don't know what else to suggest, but that's just a concern I have. I don't mean to be such a troublemaker, honestly.
No, we don't consider you a troublemaker. We're trying to find a good communication solution. We want to make it reasonable and easy for everybody to find the information they're looking for us to post what we're able to post. Typically, what I would suspect we'll be posting would be an elaboration of some of the questions and answers you've heard from today, some of the questions you've asked that we haven't yet addressed. It would probably be, you'd probably see something simple like, Brighton Road update on the front page, and you'd have to click in there and look. And yes, anyone else could look, but it's not like we're going to broadcast on the front page of our website. Yeah, here's the answers to the questions about the sober house. So we will do our best to make that available, but also to be, sensitive about the topic. Does that sound reasonable? And Matt, does this seem reasonable to you as well, that we could, the same way we've had a Conneetown news update, we might be able to post a Brighton Road update?
You just made a comment that I think we need clarity as a community. You just said a homeowner. This is a business.
A property owner.
A property owner. Fair enough.
Property
But
owner.
any property owner that wants to run a business, as already stated before, has to go through certain steps to do that. And I'm not the person to tell you that. I'm leaning on this council to help us and guide the way. The more information, the better. So if we're going to treat a property owner running a business, we need to be educated to understand what that is. If we're going to treat that property owner as a resident owning single-family home, we're pretty good at that. But that's the clarity that we're looking for. That's where I'm looking for. I'm only going to speak for myself. Is right now my confusion is, and I think people share that, is we're treating the conversation like it's a property owner. Anyone has a right to buy a property. We've established that anyone could buy that property. It's the intent of what you want to do with that property afterward, which is why we're all here tonight. That's the difference for me. Thank you for the clarity.
Thank you. Any final comments or questions? Council, any final comments or questions? Okay. At that, Matt has a list prepared, so if you would like to leave your name and email address so that we can get information directly to you, please feel free to sign the list that Matt has. Anything last, Alex? No? Thank you. We're adjourned.